This is Local Legends with your hosts Cameron Clovis, Jordan Erb, and Justin Boyette.
Hey guys, welcome back to Local Legends. This is our second episode. I'm your host, Jordan.
I'm Justin.
And I'm Cameron.
We're going to start off with some game time. We're going to be picking some games of the week, and we're going to try to decide who's going to win. We're going to start off with some college football picks. We have TCU versus number 14, Oklahoma. Justin, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Oklahoma on this one. While they did get beat by Kentucky, however, I think they're going to come back. They're going to come back stronger. I think they're going to be able to pull this one out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree with Justin on this one. I think Oklahoma's definitely going to win this one. Like he said, they have lost earlier, but they've won some big games this year, and TCU just certainly isn't the team that they've been in the last few years. So I'm going to have to agree with Justin. I'm going to side with Oklahoma.
I'm going to agree with you, too. I think TCU is nowhere near the team that they were last year, making it to the college football playoffs. And I think Oklahoma, as a top 15 team, is just going to outpower them in that game. Our next game, we got Texas Tech versus number 7, Texas.
Now, this one, I'm going to go with Texas on this. Granted, Texas Tech, they've been looking pretty good. They've won a couple of some key games, but however, Texas, they're just too strong. Their run game, they will run it down Texas Tech throats, and they're just going to score every time they have the ball. So I think I'm going to go with Texas on this one.
Yeah, guys, I completely agree with Justin. Like you said, Texas Tech, I mean, they've won a few important games, but Texas Tech is just not notable for being real much of a powerhouse in college football. They don't have much achievements, and Texas is just overall just a much better football program. And even though the rivalry's there, so I'm sure it'll be a good game, I think Texas is just going to simply outpower them.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Kind of similar to our last matchup. I think Texas is just too big of a powerhouse in this situation, and they're going to overpower Texas Tech all game. Our next game, we got number 10, Oregon State versus number 6, Oregon.
Now this I really hope to be a good game. The reason, though, I think that Oregon is going to beat Oregon State is because where they're playing. They're playing at Oregon's field, and if you go back and watch a WSU interview where their quarterback said, it is so hard to just hear what your coaches are trying to tell you, and it's hard for you to communicate with your lineman just how loud the fans can get at that stadium. So I think I'm going to go with Oregon on this one with the home field advantage.
Yeah, once again, for the third time, I'm also going to have to agree with Justin and go Oregon. Oregon's been a super complete team this year. While they may have lost to University of Washington earlier in the year, I still think they're a really good football team. Oregon State as well has had some really good games this year, but we've also seen them fall short a few times. They had a notable loss to WSU where they really didn't look like too much of a high-level team that game. So I think with the consistency Oregon has been playing this year and the high-quality football, I just don't think that Oregon State's going to be able to compete and keep up with that all game long. So I'm going to have to go with Oregon taking the win.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. This is a big Civil War matchup in Oregon, and I think that Oregon is just going to really outpower Oregon State. I think it will be a little bit closer in the first half, but I think Oregon's going to pull away in that second half of that game. In our last college football matchup, we got Colorado versus number 16, Utah.
I'm going with Utah. Colorado just played WSU this past Friday, and they just got smoked, 56-14. And man, Neon Deion, he may look it, but he is struggling right now near the end of the season. I'm definitely going to go with Utah on this one.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Justin. As he said, Colorado just played I'm not going to lie, an absolutely terrible game against WSU. They got 42 points put on them in the first half. And yeah, like Deion Sanders said in his last post-game interview, this might be the toughest stretch he's ever had in his life, and I kind of agree with him. Colorado's just really struggling right now, so I think Utah's going to easily win this one.
Yeah, I'm agree with you two on this one yet again. Watching Shedeur Sanders throw that pick after he caught it and then threw an interception right after, I think it's going to be not a good matchup for them, and I think Utah's going to outpower them. Now we're going to move on to some college basketball. We got number 18, Michigan State versus number 3, Arizona.
You know what? I'm not the biggest college basketball fan here. However, I'm going to go with the higher-ranked seed Arizona. They beat Duke at the beginning, which they have shown they are a pretty good powerhouse. So I think I'm going to go Arizona over Michigan State on this.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Justin. Arizona played a really solid basketball game early in the season. And as most good college basketball analytics will say, how a team plays in the early season is a really good indicator of how good they truly are because the team hasn't had time to be together enough. So it really shows the true talent of a team. And Arizona just really had some impressive moments. So I'm going to have to go Arizona.
Yeah, I'm agree with you guys. Watching Arizona beat that really good Duke team, I think it really sets a mark for Arizona all season. I think they're not going to struggle very much with Michigan State, and I think Tommy Lloyd's going to coach them well, and they're going to pull ahead of them in the second half. Our next matchup, we got number 15 Baylor versus Oregon State.
I think we're going to go with the ranked team Baylor on this one. While they might not have been the powerhouse they have been for a couple years ago, however, I think they're just going to trump over Oregon State.
Yeah, once again, I'll have to agree with Justin. Oregon State is never much of a powerhouse when it comes to college basketball. They've had a few good years, but truly they never have strung together a few good teams or a few good seasons of players that have really done anything notable. So I just think Baylor, even though they're not as good as they have been, but with their recent success in the last few years, I think they're just still a much better program. So I think they're going to beat Oregon State.
Yeah, yet again, I'm going to agree with you guys. Baylor's coached by Scott Drew. He's a very good coach. Baylor had a secret scrimmage with Gonzaga early this season, and it looked like a pretty even game. So I think Baylor's definitely going to pull ahead of Oregon State, and they're going to win this game. Our next matchup, we got Penn State versus number 13 Texas A&M.
This one, I'm going with Texas A&M. However, they may not have been in the top 4 all years, but Texas A&M is one of the teams that you hear about a lot when it comes to college basketball. And Penn State, they're not very noticeable, so I think I'm going with Texas A&M on this one.
Yeah, while Penn State, they may be a good football school, they haven't had too much success in recent years with basketball, and Texas A&M is just overall a pretty consistent basketball school. While they may not have the teams that are super good or win the national championships, they always have a decent team, and I wouldn't like to bet against them, so I'm going to go with Texas A&M.
Yeah, I agree with this pick. I think that Texas A&M is just a more experienced basketball team and a basketball program. I think they're just going to outpower Penn State in this game. Our last college basketball game, we have number 9 Duke versus Southern Indiana.
I'm going to have to go with Duke on this one. This is honestly the first time I ever heard about Southern Indiana. I didn't even know they were even a team until this, so I'm definitely going to go with Duke on this game.
Yeah, just like Justin said, I've never even talked about a Southern Indiana game before. I don't think I've ever heard about it on ESPN or anything like that, so clearly they're just not much of a basketball school. And while Duke has had a tough loss against Arizona, and they did lose their exhibition games, so they may not be as good quite as everyone thought they'd be, I think they're still just easily the much better team.
Yeah, when looking at these games, I also did not know who Southern Indiana was. I just thought it would be a good pick. But I do think that Duke's going to win this game. It's just a top 10 team versus a team no one's heard of. I think it's just going to be an absolute blowout. Our last segment, we got NFL. Our first game, we got Seahawks versus 49ers.
This one, I do like the Seahawks. However, I think Brock Purdy is going to show up again like he did against Jacksonville. I think I'm going to go with the 49ers on this one.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same as Justin. Earlier in the season, I thought this was going to be a better matchup than I do currently, but after the Seahawks game against the Baltimore Ravens, it kind of showed that a good defense might be able to shut them down pretty well, and that's what the 49ers have. They're just super solid all the way around. So I'm just worried that the Seahawks offense is just not going to be able to overcome how solid the 49ers are on defense. So I think I'm going to pick the 49ers.
Being the biggest Seahawks fan in this room, it hurts me a little bit to say that I'm going to agree with you guys. I do think the 49ers are going to win this Thanksgiving Day matchup. I just think their defense is a little bit too outpowered against the Seahawks offense with Geno Smith a little banged up along with Kenneth Walker. I think it won't be as close of a game as I would hope. Our next game, we got Bills versus Eagles.
This one, I hope to be a good game. I mean, you got 2 good quarterbacks. They have a good team that's surrounding them that can help them any way they need to. But I think I'm going to come out with the Eagles on this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with Justin. Like he said, they're both really good quarterbacks, both teams that have shown glimpses of being a really high-talent team. But I think the Eagles just, as a team, are better overall. Like he said, Jalen Hurts is one of my favorite young quarterbacks. He's just super solid all the way around. I mean, their tush-push is unstoppable, so you get anywhere close to 3rd and 2, I mean, you know they're going to get a first down, and that's, while it may seem small, that's just really helpful to a team to just constantly get first down, so I think they're going to use that to their advantage and beat the Bills.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to that what's been going on all day. I'm going to agree with you guys yet again. I think Josh Allen just isn't playing at his normal pace, and he's making quite a few mistakes recently, so I do think that the Eagles are going to pull ahead in this game and win it for him. Our next game, we got Ravens versus Chargers.
So here, this one, I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one. The Chargers, they've kind of been struggling a little bit, so I think Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are just going to pull it out over the Chargers on this.
Yeah, I think Justin's definitely right on this one. The Ravens have a super solid defense so far this season. As we saw against the Seahawks and many other games, like I mentioned before, they're just super solid on defense. So I just don't see a way that the Chargers are going to be able to consistently find the end zone and beat them.
Yeah, the Ravens have really surprised me this season. They're kind of a weird-looking team. You wouldn't expect them to be this good, but their defense is really the star of their team. And I think they're going to outpower that Chargers offense. Justin Herbert is a little bit banged up, and they're missing one of their wide receivers, Michael Williams. So I think it's going to be a little bit rough for them. But I do have the Ravens winning that game. In our last game, we have Steelers versus Bengals.
This one, if Joe Burrow wouldn't have been injured, I would have gone with the Bengals. But he's out, and the Bengals, he's probably one of their number one guys for their offense. And I think the Steelers' defense, they've been solid. They're going to stop the Bengals, so I'm going to go with the Steelers on this one.
Yeah, Justin's right in what he said. I mean, Joe Burrow being out is going to be a huge factor in this game, but I think I'm still going to have to side with the Bengals on this one. The Steelers, just so far this season, I mean, Matt Canada's offense has been, nothing more than horrible to say it as honest as possible. They just have not been able to figure it out on the offensive side of the ball. And sure, their defense has been solid, but I still think even with Joe Burrow out, that the Bengals are going to be able to find the end zone enough just to pull this one out.
That's our first time of disagreeing all day, but I am going to side with Justin on this one. I do think the Steelers' defense is going to be able to handle what the Bengals are going to bring to the table. And without Joe Burrow in this game, I think it's going to be a little bit hard for the Bengals to move their offense down the field. So I do think that the Steelers' defense is going to win this game for them, and I'm going to go with the Steelers on that one. So that's all we have for our game time, our daily segment. We're now going to move on to what our actual podcast is about, Local Legends.
So yeah, guys, this podcast, as you can tell by the name, it's called Local Legends. So basically our general goal or vision for this podcast is we're going to find interesting people that are from this area, the LC Valley, that have had notable achievements, accomplishments, just anything that has made them notable or sometimes famous.
We're gonna have some questions we're gonna ask them. Some things that we might consider asking them is what they're doing with their lives now. Where did they go to school? Maybe some high school or some college. Did they have any mentors in their life? Experiences, funny stories. And one of our biggest challenges with this whole podcast is how we're gonna record with each one of our guests. Either we're going to go see them in person and we're going to have a sit-down conversation with them, or we're going to talk to them on the phone. So you guys might be seeing a wide variety of ways we're going to produce our content and show our guests to you guys, but I think overall we're still going to have a successful podcast in every episode.
And with the next episode coming up, we'll have our first guest, and hopefully our first guest is going to be Austin Arnett. He's a former UFC fighter who now owns his own mixed martial arts school. I trained with him when I was younger, and it was a really good school. He really knows what he's doing. His father was one of the best. He trained him. Sadly, however, his father has passed away recently, which I think that has just motivated him more to do what his father wanted him to do.
Yeah, and like Justin said about Austin, he owns this mixed martial arts school, and he's really starting to get some prodigies that are starting to get some notice. He's got some really notable fighters. Drake Randall, so far he's undefeated in his career. I think he has 4 professional fights now. He's done a really solid job. Dimitri Morales has also been undefeated. He's been having a really solid career so far. So yeah, Austin is just, not only is he just a really good fighter himself, he's producing some really good fighters. So it'll be interesting to sit down and talk with him about that.
Yeah, I've been getting into UFC and some fighting. Not me personally, but watching it. So I think it's going to be really good to bring in this guest, and I'm really looking forward to it. Our next guest is Brian Fuller. He's a movie director, and he's most famous for helping produce Star Trek. I'm excited to see his insight on the production of movies and how things really go down in Hollywood. Being from this small little town we don't get to hear about that much. And it's really nice to be able to talk to someone who's gone and done something like that and able to provide some insight to some high school students who might not know very much about it.
Yeah, from being a small town, it's hard to do what he's been doing. Movie director and Star Trek, that was one of the most watched movies and TV shows when it first came out, when it was back in the older days, probably in the 80s or 70s.
Yeah, I think this, if we can get it, is going to be a really interesting episode. I myself hardly know anything about movie directing. And while I'm not a Star Trek fan, I think before we do this episode, I'm going to watch it and just go over it just to see and ask him some specifics about this movie and just maybe some areas that he influenced and things that would have been different without him, and just really get to know the role that he played in making this movie.
Yeah, I think that'd be really good for us.
All right, so our next hopeful podcast episode is going to be with Jesse Davis. He did go to our high school. He's an Asotin High School alumni. He went to the University of Idaho and graduated from there. And more recently, he's played for the Dolphins, the Texans, and the Steelers. And recently, within the last few weeks, he signed a contract with the 49ers. He's only on the practice squad for the 49ers now, but I mean, the 49ers are a super solid team, so to even be on their practice squad, it just shows how good of a football player he is.
Yeah, really. I think the 49ers do have some Super Bowl hopes possibly for the rest of the season, so it'd be really cool seeing a Asotin High School graduate possibly winning a Super Bowl with the team.
Yeah, this is super exciting. Having a Asotin graduate coming from a town of 900 people, going up, walking on to U of I, and then being able to have a shot of playing in the NFL for these teams, that's just incredible for someone coming from such a small town. For the next episode, we have Chris Loseth. This is going to be a fun one. He is the CEO and the founder of probably the biggest credit union in our area in the LC Valley. He's just a great guy. He is a great volunteer. He loves trying to help people. He goes out around the community and he goes out and tries to help people as much as he can.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this episode. I think he's just a really generous and nice guy. I think it's going to be a really entertaining podcast, and I really hope you guys will tune in for that one.
Yeah, I don't know Chris too much myself, but pretty much all I've heard about him are good things, so I just can't wait to sit down with him and just learn more about him and what he came from and, what his biggest accomplishments are. Our next hopeful episode is going to be with Jason Schmidt. He was a former MLB player that came from the LC Valley, and he was drafted by the Dodgers, and I've played baseball all my life. I'm a huge MLB fan. I love watching baseball. It's just a great sport, and I just can't wait to hear about his journey coming from the Valley and just how he made it to the majors.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really nice to separate himself from the rest of the sports players we got. He will be our first MLB category. We do have a couple NFL players, but I think it'd be really nice talking to someone from a different sport and seeing their experiences and what they've had going on with them.
I agree. I think, honestly, there's talk everywhere. I think MLB is the hardest sport. With the coordination you have to hit a ball with a bat that is the same size and diameter, that is almost impossible. And when you're doing something good with a failing percentage, a 3 out of 10 is when you're being successful 3 out of the 10 times, and that is good. That is just super hard, so that is just amazing to see someone being able to do this.
Our next person we got is Clay Debord. When I was searching for a possible guest for this podcast, I was shocked to stumble across someone who also went to Asotin High School and graduated from here, who also played in the NFL. He was drafted by the Cowboys and played a little bit with the Cardinals. He did go to college at Eastern Washington, pretty similar to Cooper Kupp. And I think this will be a good guest because he's not very known. Some people here don't even know who this guy is. So it'd be really nice to show other people who he is and be able to talk with some experiences and possibly get some funny stories with him about possible teachers. I know he had some experiences with Mr. Finkbeiner. So I think it'll be really entertaining, and I hope you guys like that one too.
Yeah, I'm with Jordan on this one. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode if we can, secure it. Like he said, when I first heard of Clay's name, I actually had no idea that he had played in the NFL. Most of the people at Asotin High School, they know the name Jesse Davis. He's pretty popular among just Asotin High School and the teachers. Everybody kind of knows who he is and that he played in the NFL. And while he may have had a little more of a successful career than Clay, it's still just extremely impressive that he was able to make it to the NFL. So, yeah, I think just the fact that he's just so unknown and that he played in the NFL is just going to be super cool, and it's going to make this a great episode. So next, after Clay, we're going to try and hopefully get Gino Bonelli. As you guys may know, Joel Damon, he's his caddy. Joel Damon plays in the PGA. And Gino himself is also an extremely good golfer. Just because he's a caddy doesn't mean he's not just an incredible golfer himself. He has the course record at the Lewiston Country Club, which, if I'm being honest, I'm not a very good golfer, but trust me, the Lewiston Country Club is a difficult course. And yeah, Gino's just an incredible golfer, and he's been shown recently. He's got some attention for being on Netflix's new documentary with Joel. It's called Full Swing. And yeah, he's just been getting a lot of attention recently, and I think he's just a super good personality, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, and I was just trying to look for the course record, but I couldn't find it. I do golf at the Lewiston Country Club with my friend, and I think that it's really hard to get a course record there, and his record is pretty going to be pretty hard to beat. But I think he's just overall a really nice person. My dad did help design his house, and he's really a guy that really strives for what you want your husband to be or what you want your family guy to be. He's just a really good dude, and he really promotes the LC Valley pretty well, and I'm really excited to get him on this podcast.
I agree 100%, you guys. I was able to actually go out and play around with Gino and Joel one time with my father, and that was probably the most fun round I have ever played. I mean, I did play awful, but watching those two just have little competitions with each other and kind of like nitpick at each other while they're swinging, it's just really fun time. So I'm really excited to have this guy, hopefully get this man on the podcast.
Yeah, and then our last potential guest on our podcast is going to be Joel Damon. As I mentioned earlier, he's a professional golfer on the PGA Tour. He went to Clarkson High School, so he's from super close to us. And then he played at the University of Washington. And yeah, now he's a professional PGA player. And he, honestly, I mean, while he may be a super good golfer, he's not at the top of the PGA by any regards. I think he sits somewhere in the 60s right now. But like you said earlier in this year, somebody's got to be the 70th best golfer in the world. And I think that just shows that, he might not be the best player that there is, but he just has a super good personality. And he's gotten a lot of attention recently just for how good of a person he is and how funny and much of a character he is. So, yeah, that would be an awesome episode if we could get him.
I am in 100% agreement. When I took that round with him, it was really funny. I was really bad at golfing. I was pretty young. And he's like, here, do this. He showed me one thing and boom, it improved so much. And he's all about trying to help people. He's all about volunteering. He has charities that help people with cancer. He's a great all-around guy. And his goal while he's on this earth, his goal is to try to help people, I think.
Yeah, Justin kind of pointed it out. One of my favorite things about Joel is the fact that he really tries to help people with cancer. When you watch Joel golf, he's always wearing a bucket hat that says cancer with a line through it. It just really shows them that importance to him, and he strives to be able to help those people, and that's one of his biggest goals in life. That's all that we do have today for you guys. Thank you guys for listening, and hope you guys tune in to our next podcast. Hopefully we will have a guest on that one.
Yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. If you do have any ideas or suggestions of people make sure to let us know. We're open to any ideas. But, yeah, that's all I have for today.
Thank you guys so much for listening, and hopefully we'll see you next week on Local Legends.
See you guys later.
See you guys. Remember to like and subscribe.